Hey there, and thank you for joining me. Hey there, and thank you for joining me on the Retro Game Couch. And in today's video, I want to show you a cool new cartridge for your Commodore 64. And this gives you a convenient and fast way of loading games and programs on your Commodore 64. And when I say fast, I mean instant. It's the BackBit, and not only can it load programs and games really fast, but it can do a lot of other very cool stuff, which we're going to check out in this video. So let's go. So for loading games back in the day, you would have either used a 1541 drive or you would have used a dataset. And these are notoriously slow. Cassettes are even slower, of course, but the 1541 drive is pretty slow and unreliable. Now, luckily, there are a lot of modern replacements for the slow 1541 drive, like the UK 1541, or of course the 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus. The thing, however, with these devices is that they are still bound to the slow protocol of the 1541 drive. There is, however, a way to instantly load games on your Commodore 64, and that is by using game cartridges. And you plug these into the extension port of your Commodore 64, and you turn it on, and the game is loaded. In 1990, video game consoles were taking over the market. Nintendo, Sega, you name it. And Commodore thought it would be a great idea to make a Commodore 64 based console. Yes, this is the Commodore 64 GS, and GS stands for Games System. They removed the keyboard, they removed all the connectors. Well, they're still there, but you cannot access them. And this monstrosity totally flopped and only sold about 2,000 units. Now, one positive thing that the GS brought to the market was bigger game cartridges. This holds 512 kilobytes worth of data, which is around 3 1541 single-sided floppies. So this opened up a new spectrum of possibilities, and one of them was the Easy Flash, which is a 1 megabyte cartridge on which you can flash games using USB, and then you can instantly load them on your C64. Now, what if you had the convenience of the Easy Flash, but also the ease of use of SD cards? And that is basically what the BackBit is.
Before we do anything with the device, we should update its firmware, and you can find the firmware on the BackBit website. Extract the firmware to a folder of your choice. Now download and run the Teensy software. Now use the included microSD cable to connect your BackBit to your computer. Next, in Teensy, click on File, Open, and browse to the hex file you've just extracted from the firmware zip file. Now use a paperclip to press the program button on the front of the BackBit. The Teensy software will now detect the BackBit, and you can now click on Operation and then Program. When the software says Download Complete, you can unplug your BackBit and you're upgraded to the latest firmware.
So when you start up the BackBit, you get presented with the file browser, and let's just load a game and see how fast it actually is. Let's do Outrun. Pressing the back button on the BackBit will reset it and bring you back to the folder that you were browsing, which is really cool. And it will also remember this after a restart. So if you turn it off and you turn your Commodore back on, it will load into the same folder. Let's load another game. Let's do a cartridge game this time. Let's do Terminator 2. Well, you get the idea. The BackBit will work on most of your software library, but it won't work on games that use fast loader routines. So for example, if we take this game, go to BackBit and we go to Platoon, this for me was the reason to upgrade from the SD2 IEC to the 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus. So it looks like it's working, but now it just hangs. And if I load this exact file on my 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus, then it works. Now a lot of games have been patched to work on the SD2 IEC, and those will also all work on the BackBit, and that includes Platoon. Now besides all the well-known disk images like D64, D81, T64, the BackBit also supports CRT files, and that's obvious, of course. These are cartridge images, but it also supports, for example, the Epix fast loader cartridge. So you could use the BackBit as a fast loader for your original 1541 drive. So I have the cartridge images of the Epix fast loader here. I'm going to mount the V2, press F7 and say auto start on boot. And now my BackBit is basically an Epix fast loader. So let us reboot the machine. So the UK 1541 has now mounted a game, and since I have the Epix fast loader, I can just press Commodore 1 stop and it will fast load the game. Nice. So for all the games that don't work on the BackBit, you can use the BackBit as a fast loader for your 1541 drive, which is pretty cool. So another cool feature that the BackBit has, it has the dead test and diagnostic cartridges built in, so you don't have to spend any money on custom cards like this or the originals. It has it all built in. So how to activate this? You simply turn your Commodore 64 off, you press the back button, and you turn your C64 on until the light on the BackBit goes off, and then you short press once for the dead test or twice for the diagnostic test. So let's do the dead test. Click once, and now it will load the dead test cartridge. And to exit the dead test cartridge, you turn your Commodore 64 off, then keep the back button pressed until the light turns off, and now it goes back to the BackBit menu. For the diagnostic cartridge, you keep the back button pressed again until the light turns off, and then 2 short clicks and you're in the diagnostics cartridge. So based on the settings in your BackBit will mount an empty disk on startup. So let me show you. If you press F1 and you go to startup disk, mine says D64, but you can also mount an empty D71, D81, or a D8B, which is the own format of the BackBit. So I'm going to set it to D64 and show you how you can use it. If you press the run stop key in the menu, you get in basic, and then if you write a program like print hello world 20 coded 10, this must be the most written file in the history of the Commodore. If we run this, of course, it'll work. But what if we want to save this? Well, we can save it to the empty D64 that we mount on startup. So if we say save test file, (8), it will save it to the BackBit. Now, the file is located in the folder that you are currently in. So if you go back to the BackBit, you will see a file here with the current date and time, and it's a D64. Now we can rename this file if we press F3 and call it test file, for example. And now if we mount the test file, it will run our program, and we can of course continue programming this way. Now another thing the BackBit can do is it can display koala images and it can play SID files. Now I have prepared some images here. This is me holding a Commodore 64 GS. This is me in Claimus for the Hyper Blaster HD from Hyperkin. And this is my motorcycle, which is awesome. As for SID files, I have the high voltage SID collection here, musicians. Now I can also start typing Hubbard, then Commando. Very cool. And you can switch between the individual songs using the cursor keys. Now this works for the majority of SID files, but there are some SID files that give you issues, like one of my other favorites, which is from Chris Yulbach, the great Genesisters. This is very distorted and doesn't work with the built-in SID player, but there is a solution for this called extensions, which is another great feature. So to set up an extension, you go to any program that you want. In my example, it will be SID play for that one SID that doesn't play correctly. Let's go to normal and let's pick this one. So on the SID player, you press F7, use as extension. Yes. Now we go back to that one SID file that doesn't work. I made a folder which is a bit quicker, favorite SIDs. So here's Great Genesisters. If we press F7, it says open with, and we can choose the SID player. Press S7 again. So now all SID files can be opened with this SID player. Now the cool thing is I have a few of them in this folder. So you can collect your favorite SID files in one folder, then press Ctrl Shift Enter. And now it will build a disk with these files opened by the SID player. So this is SID play. I don't have a second SID, and I want to use the keyboard. And now if we press Enter, we can choose any of the files, and let's go for Genesisters. Well, what do you know? SID play also doesn't like Genesisters, but you get the idea. Now to unset an extension, it's also really easy. If you press F7 again on a SID file, it says open with. You set it back to default. Now if we turn our Commodore 64 off and on, the extension is now gone. Now the BackBit also works, of course, in the traditional bread bin, but will it also work in a GS? Let's find out. Alright, it doesn't really want to go into the cartridge port, but I think this is close enough. Nope. Let's try again. That worked. So now we have the BackBit. Can we perhaps play a SID file? You can play SID files on your C64 GS. But what if we want to play a game? Let's just go for, I don't know, anything. That won't work. Now, what I thought of as a solution is to have it auto start one of these games. Let's try Outrun. And as you can see, it doesn't work. What if we use a normal C64 to set Outrun and to have it auto start when we turn it on? So let's go to Outrun again. Press F7. Say auto start on boot. So now when we turn a normal C64 on, it will auto run the game. But what if we put this into the GS? Let's try. Well, sadly no, but there is one more thing we can try, because it will work with cartridge games. If we go to Ocean Games, then pick the biggest one, which is Terminator 2, and say auto boot on start. It works on the normal C64. And as you can see, that works. So you can use the BackBit with the GS, but only with CRT files. And this is a painful example of a game that was made for the GS. It says Commodore 64 GS, but the first thing it does is ask for a key press. Well done Commodore, well done Ocean. So you can only play CRT files that don't require keyboard input. Well, let's forget about the GS, but it kind of works. Cool. So this was a closer look at the BackBit, my new favorite cartridge for the Commodore 64. And I cannot state enough how much this has made me reappreciate my favorite computer of all time. So that really says something. And there is so much more it can do. It's, for example, also compatible with the VIC-20 with an adapter. It has its own extensive API that you can use. It has its own file format up to 4 gigabytes in size on a C64, which is awesome. And it will only get better with future firmware updates. So really awesome. Evie, thank you so much for sending this my way. You, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, because most of you who are watching aren't subscribed. Please get me to 20k, that would be awesome. So for now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time on the Retro Game Couch.